Ready? In the Father, and Son, and Holy Spirit, and God, amen. Okay. Hi. Okay. So I have to use the mic because we're recording, but we'll have a nice discussion. Okay. So today we're talking about overview of the Coptic language. So I thought to start, you should see the Coptic language. Okay. So the Coptic language consists of how many letters? 32 letters. 26 letters are Greek letters, and 7 are Demotic letters. So let's start. The next slide, okay, this will show you that 13 letters of the alphabet look like English and sound like English. So almost half of the alphabet is like English, which makes it easy to learn. So A, B, E, I, K, L, M, N, O, P, R is similar, and T and X. Okay? Let's see what we're going to talk about today. What does the word Coptic mean? I didn't know I had. Okay? We're going to talk about what does the word Coptic mean. No. Ape. The points are not coming up. Okay, what does the word Coptic mean? Why Coptic? And how did Coptic come about? Why should we learn Coptic? How did Coptic come about? The origin among Egyptian pagans, the origin of Coptic among Egyptian pagans, the origin among Christians in Egypt, okay? Dialects, the different Coptic dialects, okay? The Golden Age. I'm just going through points of where we're going to go through each slide. The 7th to 20th centuries of Coptic, during Coptic. Why we need to study Coptic, and then some interesting facts of Coptic. I know you're going to like it. Obviously, you know I'm corny, so the last slide is going to be very corny, but it's going to be nice. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to continue just listen and then until the slides come up. What does the word Coptic mean? Okay? In Latin, it's Coptus, okay? In Greek is Aegyptios. In Coptic, Metremen Kimi. Kimi is Egypt. Metremen Kimi. So I got more information. I couldn't update the slide yet, but I'm just going to read something to you. The ancient pharaohs of Egypt believed that the god Ta, Ptah, was the God who modeled people out of clay and gave them the breath of life. Okay? So from Ta came the pharaonic name of Egypt, He-Kapta. He-Kapta. Okay? In Coptic, the name was He-Kapta, which means the home of the spirit of Ta. Okay? The Greeks, then the Romans after them, pronounced it Aegyptos. The Greeks and the Romans pronounced it Aegyptos, containing the word what in the middle? Aegyptos. Gipt. Okay? The Arabs called the Egypt Dar el-Kipt. Dar el-Kipt, or home of the Gipt, or Ipti, which means home of the Egyptians. So in writing, they changed the letter G to Q, so they called the Egyptians Gipts. That's where you hear now they call us Gipti. Ipti, Coptic, comes from the original name for Egypt. Okay? Egypt. Yeah. You had a question? In the slide I have Aegyptus, okay, but the actual explanation of it, I can update it for you, okay? So, it was your Aegyptus, that's where Gipt came from, and we're called Copts, okay? And then in Egypt in Arabic is Misr, which comes from Masira, which is the children of the sun. Ra is the sun. Okay? So that's the origin of the word, or Coptic and Egyptian, and they're all one. Yani. Okay? Why Coptic? How is Coptic came about? It was the last stage of the written Egyptian language. Hieroglyphics, very good. Hieroglyphics. Huh? Yeah, so we're going to get to that too. After Bishoy said they wanted them to speak Arabic because they didn't want them to speak Coptic, so that came in the Islamic invasion. Okay? So, Islamic invasion. So we're going to talk about it later. Okay. So the Coptic came from the last stage of the written language, which was hieroglyphics and some demotic letters. So we said the first 24, first 24 letters are Greek, alpha to omega. First 26 plus 7 is what? Huh? 33. So it's not 7 demotic letters. Maybe with jinkum. There's a number in the middle too. I'll count it again. I'm sorry. Let me count it in. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 4 is 32. 32 and then jinkum is 33. Okay? 7 demotic. So 32 minus 7. I'm the accountant. But I'm 25. Yeah, so I think it's 24 letters. Okay, 25y minus 1 because there's a number. Alpha, Vita, Gamma, Delta, E, Su. Su is the number 6. Very good. So it's 24 Greek letters. Alpha to Omega. Ustaz dakhal, he's going to correct me. But Alpha to Omega is 24 letters. And then the number 6 and 7 demotic letters. And then jinkum. Totals 33. Okay? Are we back on? Okay, so next. Am I controlling or are you controlling? Okay, so this is what we talked about. Coptus, Egyptus, mit Rem and Kimi is 2 words. Kimi is Egypt. Rem and Kimi is Coptic. Rem and Kimi. Yeah, Kimi, I don't know. I made this, I have to be honest, I didn't look back at that. It says the black land. Yeah. Egypt is a black land. It's in Africa. Okay. Masr comes from Masira, or the children of the sun. Okay? All right, next. Let's get off this. See, every year I learn something new. Then Kimi. All right, we talked about Coptic. Okay, next. The origin among Egyptian pagans. In 313 BC, Alexander the Great, with his general Ptolemaeus, invaded Egypt. Okay, Alexander. And as you see, as good guests, they brought a gift to Egypt. They brought Greek. Okay? Greek. Oh, it says, she's like, oh. They didn't bring halawa or hagat together. We had that already. Okay? They brought Greek. 24 characters. In order for Egyptians to understand and pronounce, they had to add some. They changed the Greek so it doesn't look exactly like Greek, right? Yeah. It doesn't look exactly like Greek. So they changed the letters around and maybe some pronunciation, and now we're trying to go back to it a little bit. But we changed the letters and the pronunciation to make it Egyptian, Coptic, make it more for, okay? Why is there a smiley face? Because I said as hard as that is for Egyptians to understand, but I didn't want to go on the record saying that. Okay. That's the picture of the alpha and omega. You see the Greek? You see the Greek omega on the bottom right? And you see the omega on the top left, that's our omega. Omega, the difference between the Greek and the Coptic. Did I write that? It's a good question. I don't think so. My alpha is not that good. My big alpha, I can't do it. I don't know why. No matter what, I can't draw the big alpha. All right, next. Origin among Christians in Egypt. How did Egypt become the center of Christianity? Orthodoxy? Coptic? St. Mark. Okay? So he brought Christianity to Egypt. Okay? He was the missionary for Egypt. And many missionaries went to Egypt, and some were prepared even from the school of Alexandria, which St. Mark was the dean of and made. But they knew how to read Greek, but not Demotic. So they translated the scriptures into Egyptian tongue by using Greek characters. They translated the scriptures into Egyptian tongue by using Greek characters. More borrowed Demotic characters, total of 6 or 7. I said 7. 7, huh? We're going to see it now. Yeah. Alpha, Vita, Gamma. You see that's from the Greek. And 7 from the Coptic, which is from the Demotic, they count Su. Jinkum is not a letter. Jinkum is not. Is this right, Mina? Okay. Alpha to Omega from the Greek. Not Su. That's the 6, 9, 24 letters from the Greek. And 7 from the Demotic. That was right, you see? Okay? Yeah. No, and I've never researched that, and I've always been asked that. Why is the number 6 in the alphabet? I don't know. Hey, kid. But this is the part of the things that the Egyptians added, so that's why. The gift was perfect as it came from Greece, but we had to add something. Okay? So we had to add a number. Why not 7 or 3? Why 6? Sure. Took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah. Yeah. So just to recap, just so it can be said on record, Bardo. So Egyptians, the Coptic, they had their own language, but they used the Greek to write the language, to express the language in script. Right? Okay. Yes. Maya, go ahead.
Okay, so is that why, like, sometimes when, like, say if we were to go to, like, a different church or something, sometimes they pronounce something differently? Is that the reason, or just because?
In Coptic church or in, like, a Greek or something? No, that's recently there's been some changes to go back to the Greek, like if we say Puranion or Puranion. Tuksa Batri. That's I don't know if I started that. I don't know. No, Khenni Fawi, that's a different. We're going to see dialects. We're going to talk about that, and Mina knows. But that has nothing to do with going back to the Greek. Going back to the Greek, we're talking about Tuksa Batri, Puranion. When we say Mercurius, Bachomius, when we say the heat ends like that, the Ibrahimiyat started going back to the original pronunciation. Epuranion instead of Epuranion. So that's all with the Yota, but that's different. Yani. But Nifawi and Mawi and Niwen and that we're gonna let's go through the history of the Coptic, and then we're gonna get to that. Mina is gonna think of an answer for us. She's talking about the old Buhayrik or the Buhayrik, the Niwen and stuff like that. We'll talk about that. Yeah, it's another dialect. We're going to look at dialects later on, that dialects originated in different places, so there's no original way. But there's a lot of dialects. Actually, that's next. Back then, Sahidic became the more dominant dialect, but all were affected and weakened by the influence of Arabic. Say Sahidic is Saidi. Saidi. They're smart people, Saida. Don't ever make fun of them. That's... became the more dominant dialect, but it was affected by and weakened by the entrance or influence of Arabic. Now Buhayrik is the only surviving dialect of Coptic kept alive by Wad al-Natrun. Then when the Patriarchate moved from Alexandria to Cairo in the 11th century, Buhayrik of the region became the official dialect of the church, replacing Sahidic. So that's saying in the 11th century, Buhayrik became the official dialect of the church, replacing Sahiric. Okay, so now the church uses, huh? Yes, we know Bohairic. Bohairic. Okay. The golden age of Coptic. Coptic was used from the beginning of Christianity as a translational tool from Greek to Egyptian. Huh? Arabic. Abbots of monasteries, mostly Egyptian, wrote their rules in Coptic. Okay, and we're going to see later why monasteries was that. We're talking about monasteries because during persecution, the only place that the language was alive was in monasteries because we were persecuted. No. Even the fathers of the church would write in Coptic when addressing the monks. Okay, so their rules were written in Coptic, and church bishops, fathers, would write their letters in Coptic. So the monastic and church fathers started the golden age of Coptic. Okay? Which means that it started reviving, bringing back Coptic. Keeping Saint Shenouda, the Archimandrite, is very associated with Coptic. And that's why you'll see on his feast day in St. George, Saint Shenouda, they pray a liturgy all Coptic. On the feast of Saint Shenouda, the Archimandrite. He lived from 348 to 466 AD. And he transformed Coptic from just merely a tool to a literary language. We said it was a translational tool. He changed it from a tool to a literary language to speak and to use. Addressed monks, ecclesiastical authorities, laymen, and even government officials. Okay? Then we go from the 7th to 10th century. By the middle of the 7th century, Egypt came under Arab rule, forcing Arabic. I'm not going to get into the history of the church or the Arabic conquest. We're going to do that later on in the session. But by the middle of the 7th century, Egypt came under Arab rule, forcing Arabic. They had to speak Arabic. You had to learn Arabic. You couldn't speak Coptic or use Coptic. A lot of stuff in the Arab era happened, and we talked about the persecutions, the torture, the crosses that they were made to wear, the tattoos that they were made to get, stuff like that. Yeah, like that. Coptic continued to be used in church with Greek as a second language. They continued to use Coptic against the rule of the Arabs, and with Greek as a second language. Arabic loan words made their way into the language, but nothing was used in the church. So you know how sometimes you have mix كده now, Arabic and English. تلاقي واحد بيكلم Arabic ويدخل كلمة English كده. Mix. Yeah. They were forced to speak Arabic on the outside and in the churches as well. Later on we'll see it was only kept alive in the monasteries at a certain point, until we'll see when it came back. Coptic was also spoken by peasants and probably clergy. Now I think there's only one big family in Egypt that actually speaks Coptic. They'll actually talk to each other in Coptic. There's a family in Egypt that they'll talk to each other in Coptic. And in order to start learning it, if you want to go, they would, like, on window, they would put the Coptic word for window. So every time you look at the window, I can't say window, I'm going to say that word. So they'll talk to each other in Coptic, and now they know how to speak to each other in Coptic, they understand. And there's a bishop, not off topic. On Tasbaha.org there used to be a video, but I don't know if it's still there. Emba Domadios, he prays the whole liturgy in Coptic. He reads the gospel in Coptic, and he says his sermon in Coptic. Yeah. He'll say the sermon in Coptic, but so people can understand, he'll say one line Coptic, and then he'll translate in Arabic. And then he'll say another line Coptic and translate in Arabic. And he'll keep talking like that. Yeah, and actually I think Emba David did that before too. Like, he'll prepare some parts, somebody will prepare it for him, write it in Coptic, and then he'll translate it for him. But that's keeping the language alive. Now, 11th century to 14th century, introduction of Arabic in the 12th century by Patriarch Gabriel ibn Turaik. Okay? So now it's introduced, I guess, in the church more officially by the patriarch. Such move was considered wise at the time, but it actually opened the floodgates. Okay, it was wise at the time, but now it opened a way for Arabic to get into our prayers, into our churches. Yeah. Also, Arabic texts written in Coptic characters circulated around the monasteries, and vice versa. Arabic texts written in Coptic characters. You know how now if I can't read Arabic, I'll read English Arabic. English Arabic. So Arabic texts written in Coptic characters and vice versa. Okay? So Christians converted to Islam because of loss of Coptic. Christians converted to Islam because of loss of Coptic, but now Arabic bridged the barrier. Okay? Don't say, oh, and how, recently when there was people talking about, oh, how can you take Coptic out of the churches? A lot of people were upset, right? Take Coptic. They were a little too upset about losing Coptic. No, but listen, we're going to look at it later too. Coptic is your flavor. Yani, what makes us Coptic Orthodox except Coptic. Yani. Yeah. I can't hear, hold on. Huh? No, it didn't happen now, but there's rumors of people not going to be using Coptic and stuff like that. And all English liturgies and stuff like that for missionary use. Yeah. Okay. Now, decline as spoken language. This is where it starts, from the 14th century to the 17th century. I used to get actually mixed up, just a side note, with the centuries. That means 1500 to 1800. Right? Yeah. 13th to 16th time, good. And it's always before? Okay. So 1300s to 1600s, 14th century, 17th century. Despite the decline of Coptic tradition, still mandated Coptic be used in the church services. Okay? Yeah, I'm going to skip that. I'm sorry. I had another book that had this, and I was looking for it, and it's written by, I'll give you the author. And I'm going to try to find it again so we can use it. I'll send the story. It was Coptic language and Coptic music and stuff like that by Paul Beseda. You know that book? It came out recently? Yeah, I couldn't find the book. I think this is where the story was. But we'll move on. Okay. Here's the revival starts in the 19th century. So 14th century, 17th century is where it declined as a spoken language. In the 19th century or 1800s is when the revival came back. Saint Cyril IV, Abul Islah, we called him, father of reform. Okay. Returning to Greek, but also creating a new pronunciation. Many Coptic service books printed for the first time in the 19th century. There's many Coptic service books printed for the first time. So he was part of the revival. Coptic into the 20th century. Pronunciation was hard considering the revolution in 1952 where Arabic became more prominent. So as members of the new educated class, they were called upon to serve the church. They brought a preaching spirit that put Arabic in the services. Unintentionally and in spite of goodwill and love for church tradition, they introduced again an element that weakened the revival. Okay? So the pronunciation they brought it back in the services, but pronunciation was hard. Okay, so in order to serve the people and the sermons and stuff like that, they brought back Arabic in these services. So it kind of weakened the revival a little bit. But now we see it. This is the 20th century, 1900s. We're good, I think. Do you guys know Coptic? Huh? Do you guys know Coptic? Inshallah. I spent a year and a half teaching the kids Coptic in Rabbina Yustur. 3 years. On a side note, if anybody really wants to learn Coptic now, grammar and stuff like that, tune into Thursday nights on El Maqar or Archangel Michael, St. Mina, and Stanan. And but David teaches Coptic now. He teaches in Stanan Church, but it's on TV, on live. So he teaches the pronouns and nouns and حاجات زي كده يعني. Okay? Alright, why, I'm almost done, or I think we're out of time too. Why do we need Coptic? Why do we need to study Coptic? Okay? Obviously, some of this might be my opinion. Okay? It's our flavor. What makes us, I believe, Coptic is our Coptic language. Okay, and what makes an Indian Orthodox? I mean, even though language is part of it, obviously there's rites that are different. Small T tradition that's different, the culture that has entered the church. But language is a big part of what makes us Coptic. And if our fathers have fought so hardly to keep Coptic in the church and have endured persecution and kept it alive in the monasteries, why should we be that link that drops? Okay? So I think it's very important. Our church and fathers fought for it. It's a link to our past, okay? To know our ancestors, to know that this language came from the ancient Egyptians and the hieroglyphics. It's not and this is the original language of the Egyptians. And they spoke this language. Our language is not Arabic, our language is Coptic. Okay? It's the source of the church's greatness and becomes more accessible. Coptic version. Now there's a Coptic version of the Bible, writings of the church fathers. Coptic version of the Bible, you want to see it? Open your Coptic reader. And in Coptic reader, the Bible's in Coptic. And it's read in church. In the rites of the church, the bishop is supposed to read the gospel in Coptic. And then, no, a lot of bishops have. I was praying liturgy the other day with the bishop in the morning, and he prayed the psalm in Coptic. Singeri. Oh, yeah. All right, interesting facts. Let's keep this a little interesting. You ready for that? Yeah, it's some words that came from Coptic. Okay. Barge came from the Coptic word bari, which means small boat. Okay. Is that boat? Oh, that's A? That might be boat. I think I misspelled it. I meant to do that. I wanted to see if you'd pick up. Huh? Accounting. Yeah, I know. Me too. Mass from Christmas comes from Misi. Misi, we say Ibjen Misi, the birth of Christ. Yeah. Futa, you know, foot. I know, but it's Coptic. Futa, towel. Halak. Simsim. Barkuk. Barkuk is bar'u, right? Is that bar'u? Bisara. I love Bisara, especially in the Siyam. Bisara. Balah. And fool. Fool is the original. Yeah, this is Coptic, yani. And if you don't eat fool, huh? Okay. So futa is towel, halak is earrings, simsim is sesame seeds, bar'u is peach, bisara is some form of food. It's a bean. Bisara is a bean. Oh, it's the fool, and it looks like ملوخية, but it's Balah is what we use during the New Year. It's dates, yellow or red. I actually just recently tried red dates. Oh, it's okay, yeah. And fool is fava beans. This is part of our flavor bardo in the Coptic church is fool. Bar'u is plum. Bar'u is plum. Okay. I don't know what joke you're talking about. Okay, some towns. Cairo. This is all some towns that come from the Coptic word. The Coptics. Qahira, Abu Tig, Akhmim, Al Fayoum, Asyut, Aswan, Benha, Bulak, Damanhur. By the way, on the side, Damanhur, do you know where that came from? The word Damanhur? Huh? Dem, Anhar. Little. Dem, Anhar, and this was in the times of persecution. Rivers of blood. And the city was named after. Dumyat, Idfu, Minya, most of them Said. Kullu Saidi. Irmant, Isna, Samanot, Manfalot, Mankabad, Rashid, Sunbat, Tima, and Tanta. Bulus, I put that for you. Tanta. Bulus is from Tanta, so I had to do. Okay, wrap up. Ready? What does the word Coptic mean? Shh. Huh? The word Coptic means Egyptian. In Greek it was what? No, Greek. Egyptus. Okay? Huh? Oh, is that with an I? I was wondering why I had the name Origen. I know Origen is a great scholar, Yana. I probably did this in the first grade. I don't know. Huh? Yes. Coptic, the important parts of this, I know we had some fun, but there's going to be parts in the exam. You have to know the origin of Coptic. You have to know the origin of your language. So, if you spell origin wrong, I'm not going to take points off. I mean, they take points off for spelling. And you guys probably did even worse than me in spelling. Pull those tests out, making fun of me. Look at Carl. Okay. Why should we study Coptic? Very good. It's our flavor. It's what the church fathers fought for. It's our language. When did the language start declining? 14th century to the 17th century. Okay? And what century did the revival start? 19th century. Very good. Where was Coptic during that period? Where was Coptic revived, kept alive? In the monasteries. What did they write in Coptic in the monasteries? The rules. And what was going back and forth in Coptic? Letters between the fathers and the monks. Okay? Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Good job, Mark. Thank you so much. I want to put things in perspective for you guys as we go through this section of church history. So it's important to know our heritage, where we come from, and all this stuff, because it's part of who we are, right? But think about what language was prevalent in Egypt before Coptic and Greek came to town. Hieroglyphics. What did Mark say? Who brought the Greek Coptic language? Right, Alexander the Great. We have a city, Alexandria, named after him, right? Then he put a general in Egypt. He was Ptolemaeus, or otherwise known as Ptolemy the First, right? There was like 11 or 12 Ptolemies that came after him that were like ruling Egypt. That last one, his daughter is Cleopatra. Cleopatra was around during who was ruling in Rome at the time? Julius Caesar, because she had a relationship with him, right? And Mark Antony. That was happening at that time. What year was Christ born? How do we know? Because of the census. Who put the census in place? Now, this is all to get you guys thinking about church history. Let's think about the timeline. Who was taking the census? And they had to go to their own town for the census? Caesar Augustus, who was, I believe, the nephew of Julius Caesar. So just to follow through the generations and the timeline so you can understand, oh, wow, for thousands of years it was hieroglyphics. And then for how many generations they were doing the Coptic thing before 500 AD, Arabic comes to town. Okay, so keep that in mind as we start going through the timeline of church history. Okay, we're very lucky that our culture, our background, it's very full of very rich in history. So it's a beautiful thing. And the Greeks and the Romans alike, it's a great thing to learn. So keep that in mind as we go around. Do you guys have any questions for Mark?
It's not a question.
Oh, I got a statement. I got two statements.
So this is just to tell you a little bit about the history of Coptic language. If you want to learn about the Coptic language, Mark said to tune in to Enba David. That should be fun. Mark teaches it too if you want to go to him personally, and Mina as well. Guys who do not have books, can you raise your hands? Not if you have been given a book and don't have it with